Right, for my bad point, this is one where technically we're speculating about rumours here, but I'll put it out there because nobody's heard anything of the contrary. Despite all this news you've heard about who might be joining G2 as a player, the only info anyone heard about who might be the coach of G2 was when Malik was released or told it, like, services aren't required anymore. It was said in the article that Nell wrote on like 1vp.fr or whatever that fucking site's called that he writes for. It was intimated that they might get Emmy, who obviously, if people don't know, way back in the day used to play with people like Niko, Nexa, probably Hunter at some point in time, I'm guessing, because he's from the Balkan region, obviously, right? And he was someone, if people don't remember, who was with the Contact team at some point in like Flashpoint. It was like a stand-in at some point. Yeah, he was with FPX as well. And then obviously he would be joining as the coach, right, to replace Malik. Right. The reason why I have put this as a bad one, I know it's not confirmed it happens, but I'll say the alarming thing to me is that it was even put out there. So intimated, like, it's like plausible. Like Nell's a real journalist in that sense. I've never seen any of his stories be a lie. And then secondly, I haven't heard any other rumors. Like I haven't heard. Listen, I know. I'll just tell you straight up. I know all the coaches. So if I go and talk to my mates like Zeus, Yanko, fucking Kassad, they're not getting these offers. Like, well, I can't comment on the G2 one. Maybe they have in the recent moments. I don't know. But when I talked to them previously, they weren't getting offers from teams like G2. So to me, it's like when the major happened, right? I told you the good news is this: despite what Hunter said in that interview, spoiler, Hunter doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about, guys. He's just a guy who plays Counter-Strike. He isn't hooked into the sort. Like, I don't know why he said that comment as though he was the GM, where he said essentially they wouldn't be having any roster changes. They were always going to have roster changes, even maybe if they've even won the fucking major. I don't know. That might have been the only case that might have been able to avoid it. So I was confident, like, right, this is great. You're going to make roster moves. You need roster moves. Now, some of the roster moves I've heard, I have my own takes about. I can see the gambles. I can see why they're going for some of them. Some of them I'm not as big a fan of. Depends which players end up coming. Is it Momency and Rops? Is it just Momency? Is it Alexi B and Momency? Like, there's a bunch of angles where it could get fun. But I do think they're overlooking the coaching position. And to me, when you have a team as good as they had, in terms of, like, you've got Niko, he's in amazing form. You've just had a bunch of really big runs in tournaments. Just bring in a coach who's one of the best in the world. You don't gamble then. That's not a position you gamble on. Like, why would you gamble on a guy? And also, let's just add this in there as well. Even though I can't know this is why, I'm going to go ahead and guess this wasn't the org that picked him if they're really thinking of this guy. This just screams nepotism. This screams that one of Hunter, Nexa and Niko, if not all three, just said, please hire this guy. We like him and we think he can do the job. Like, I know people will think, like, get the coach to please the players. I hate that move personally. Like, I think if he comes in, he'll just be an average or not that good coach. Remember, he's never really fucking done the role at a tier 1 level. He's never been in, like, when I talk about those names I said before, even if people want to diss on Yanko, mate, his resume kicked the shit out of Emmys. What are you talking about? This guy had teams that were some of the better teams in the world. He had top 10 teams in the world. He had teams going head to head with the best squads. So to me, it's just criminal that, like, for coaching, we still, for the coaching role, like, it's like almost like who's mates with the players. We don't, where's the transfer market for coaches? Like, where are the massive names? Like, why aren't people in, like, why isn't Extaz joining this team or Yanko or Kassad? Or give me some fucking talent here, mate.
Yeah, I will say, for me, it's more shocking they're not going after Zeus, who's just like just there right now. Who's just an option as a coach, who's one of the winningest coaches of all time. So that's crazy.
By the way, if any fan goes, because this is the sort of world we live in, Davey, where even though it was in my interview that Zeus said I'm going to become a content creator, not a coach, people will forget it was in my interview and just repeat back to me lines from my interview and go, no, but actually, Thorin, he's becoming a content creator. Yeah, I know, I'm the one who revealed that to the world, but okay. But all I'll say is this. I know him as a person, so I can tell you from the fucking horse's mouth, if it's a team like G2, as in like a team that could win the bit, he will come back. Yep, he isn't coming. The point is, he isn't coming back to do like he's done some fucking stupid shit like he did in EG, where they didn't give him any roster control, and he just had to like play. Like, it's like, good news, you get Mihao as your new player. Yeah, he's not coming back for that shit. He's not coming back for that rodeo. But if you put him, like, if you give him one of the best teams in the world, he will come back. I'm telling you. So he would be available. I'm telling you in that sense.
Yep, absolutely. And I think as far as Yanko and Kassad go, all of the players on that team know them. And if the org's not interested and the players don't want them, there's something else there.
Yeah, there's a point there, I guess.
Like, if because Niko's worked with Yanko, Nexa's worked with Yanko. You know, they all have worked with them before, Kassad and Yanko. So if none of them are saying bring in Yanko or bring in Kassad, that means either they don't think they're going to do a good job with this team, or they don't think they were very good coaches, or whatever it is. They don't want to work with them again. So if that's the case, then there's no point in bringing them back in, because there's no point. If the players don't want to work with the coach before you bring the coach in, then it's fucking doomed. assumed. But also on the same point, like you said, I don't think you should bring in a coach just because the players want that coach specifically. There has to be some sort of balance there. I think X-Taz would be a great choice, obviously. But I think for this team specifically, I think Zeus is by far the best choice. And it's surprising to me. If they haven't approached Zeus, I would be surprised and say that I would agree with you. They're overlooking the coaching role for this team pretty significantly.
I'll even add this in there as well, because it's not every team I have the direct connect. I've literally told Carlos directly, Zeus is available, you can get him. Do you want me to hook it up? Like, I've essentially just give him on a silver platter, you know. And I did this like the second the major was ending, basically. I just told him straight up, like, these, same as, by the way, spoiler, if some people end up joining, I'll tell people the stories, but there's some people I recommended that you might have heard the names in the mix, etc. Maui, what do you think on this topic?
I mean, from just watching Emmy's recent work against on FPX, all I could say is that I saw the switch from when they took Crystal, then they were trying. I mean, it's fitting, right, that you actually replace your IGL and you put Sunny in first. But then they put in Sunny, they put in Chris J, and then they put in Emmy, and it felt like they were just running the strats that Crystal had into the ground with every preceding in-game leader that they were adding until the roster finally died, and then FPX dropped them as a team. So I can't really see where Emmy is supposed to show any sort of like tactical prowess or anything like that. Like if you can't really reform that team. Like that team had some really strong players like Modern, Stiko, Farlig, like Zane. Like honestly, those 4 players were
Zen
good
is
enough
insane, dude.
Yeah, like I mean, I mentioned them last, and they all are pretty good, honestly. Yeah. So if you can't make that roster achieve any significant results whatsoever, then I have questions about how you're supposed to do any better on the biggest stage in the world.
No, I mean, also the other thing as well that I can't handle about moves like that is, right, one of the things, I'll just say this right now, because one of the things, if you ever notice like a trend, you should point it out, because if it ever comes true, obviously in the future, then you've sort of like chronicled it early. I'll just say this right now. I don't think Niko actually likes tactical Counter-Strike. I don't think he likes what I love to watch, like very like in-depth, like a system. And you basically, what I love about that approach to Counter-Strike is if you don't have a Na'Vi or FaZe Clan-esque roster, you can still match up with those squads, because what you essentially do with a system is it allows the bad players to always know where they're supposed to be and what they're supposed to do and how they help the star players, etc. The star players get their frags anyway. It's like any sport. Like those guys, the team's built around them. But you want a good system that elevates everyone else and means that the team collectively. A good system also, by the way, can make up for like lack of chemistry in certain aspects. You know, you just throw 5 players in a server like Team Liquid 2019 did. You have to just hope they come together and frag everyone's head off, and everyone somehow fits whatever role they vaguely have in the team, but don't have necessarily like a strictly set position always. So this is the reason I bring this up is this. Think of Niko's career. So he played under God B briefly when he was in Mousespots in 2015, but that was when like they kicked God B out of that because they claimed he didn't work hard enough or something. Then he had the team where he was himself the IGL at one point in time, while like essentially still a rookie LAN player in 2016, and that was a team that had terrible players. So I can tell you right now, they weren't playing really good tactics. They were basically just playing how does Niko position himself on the map to get as many kills as possible while sort of helping you a little bit, because I can't just only do it myself. That was like how he played then. Then he went to FaZe Clan, and all those iterations had tons of star players and skilled players, and I think that's actually unfortunately what started to somewhat degrade Carrigan's reputation, because it made idiot fans who didn't watch him in his other teams think he only plays like Niko go kill, like that sort of like loose shit, whereas in reality what Carrigan did was, if you give him literally some of the best players in the entire world at their roles, yeah, obviously I'm not going to give everyone like super detailed strats there. You're all the best in the world. I'm just going to do mid-round calls, aren't I? That'd be obnoxious otherwise, wouldn't it? Like, I'm not going to literally tell like Kevin Durant how to fucking dribble the ball up and pass it off. I'm going to kind of let him do it himself, and I've got all the best players. So as a result, though, in FaZe Clan, they weren't a super tactical team, mate. Again, they were getting by off superstar players. Then you come later to this G2 squad. I think they brought a bit of it to the table, but Nexa is his fucking IGL, mate. And you look at that team, all I'll say is this. During the peak of the Nexa G2 team, they were good on 4 maps out of 7, and somehow that was good enough for like number 3 in the world. So I'm just going to say this. I think Niko, because individually he isn't a player who needs to be forced to play like a certain style. Like he is a genius where you just let him do his shit and he's got a complete game individually. I think he doesn't get tactical Counter-Strike, mate. If you ever notice over the years, go back in the day and look at interviews when he's talking about any of the Astralis lineups or some of those teams like that. And he's always like actually like a bit sort of salty about them. He almost has the vibe of they're almost like tryhards or nerds because they're like watching demos and doing all these like smoke abuses. It's like, mate, that's Counter-Strike. You're not playing Quake, you know. Like, this isn't a fucking like heavyweight boxing match, mate. This is like fucking fencing or something, or like judo. This is an art, dude. So all I've got to say is the reason I bring this all up is because that's why I think if you look historically, notice the names Niko wants as his IGL. It's all like washed mid-round callers. Or in terms of coach, when's he ever asked and said, like, give me a good... No, he's getting like a fucking guy who's just a mate of his or something from his region. Like, I hate this move because what I hate about it goes like this. I know Niko individual frag out, therefore he'll never get the blame, but he is actually the one deciding other roles in the team potentially, or having undue influence. And even if he says, and this will always be the go back for someone like Niko, but I wasn't the one who had the only say. You're Niko, you dumb fuck. People listen to you differently than other guys. You have to understand your voice has a responsibility it carries when you speak. What you say ripples through the whole team and has way more impact. Even if the other three go, yeah, I agree, they're going because you said it, mate. They're not doing it because, like, they're not going, oh, we better get this guy in because Nexus says he's walking otherwise. Yeah, he'd be on a fucking bus right now, wouldn't he? Who gives a fuck what that guy thinks? So, in my opinion, when people like Niko, I'll tie it into the Elise case earlier. If those guys get their choices, they get their coach, their friend comes in as the IGL, their other guy joins as a spot, then they have to carry the can when that team fails. Because what they essentially said there was, I'm going to play mini GM, and then when the team fails, go, but I'm fragging out. Like, you're just a dickhead of matchmaking again if you do that. Like, there has to be some responsibility for these superstar players, because at the moment, the orgs all cater to them still. There's only a couple of orgs, as far as I know. It was like X-Stars, and then who would even fit that kind? Maybe Zonic. Maybe those two had like true control where they could sort of say to the side, like, I decide shit here, you know, you just give input. So I just hate that vibe. I don't like the vibe that like someone like Niko is going to bring in a guy, potentially, obviously this might not happen, and then they might just not be a top team, they might not win anything, and then every fan's just going to go, G2 did Niko dirty. What are you talking about, you fucking idiot? So I hate that whole move. Because as I say, for me, coaching, we have to level this shit up. Coach and GM have to be like player. You don't just recruit any player and go, hope he could be my star player. You recruit the best players in the world because they're proven. Why are coach and GM just getting these whack-ass roles and people that you've like never heard of relative to the role?
You know who else probably has that same power and control is Blade for Na'Vi, because I find it super unlikely that Simple's sitting there like, I need Perfecto. Get me Perfecto, Blade. You know who? I saw him for the academy team. Bring him in. You know what I mean? Like Simple's not doing that, right? So that is their coaching staff operating that way. Which my other option for good was going to be Na'Vi Academy, but we don't need to go into all that detail.
It's all right.
Either way, like Blade definitely has that level of control, and X-Taz definitely had that level of control, and they were 1 and 2 for a very long time with young academy players who normally people wouldn't have picked up, right? Like when you look at all of it, it's like sometimes these guys, the best guys, really do know what they're doing. It's shocking, I know. It's crazy to think about, but they really do know what they're doing if you give them the power to do it.
It's probably a safe bet, Davey, to say that maybe Simple didn't have roster control in Na'Vi during most of his time.
Right, exactly.
You just look at the fucking teams he was playing with, you know?
Yeah. That's what I mean. Like, there's no fucking... Even when this team got put together, you're sitting there like at first it's like, fucking Bit, Perfecto, Boomage, like, oh my god, poor Simple and Electronic, right? And then it just turns out that's like one of the greatest fucking talents ever.
I even thought the same thing, mate. Even though, listen, obviously it turned around and it's like the Ziwu or Stewie 2K moves where it was the 1 in a million that works. I thought the same thing, dude. When they announced they were getting that Bit guy and they initially were bringing him in 6-man style, like fucking Bobski style, and then they were like, oh, he's going to replace Flamey. I remember being like, so we lost the Flick guy we were going to get years ago, and now our replacement is a guy I've never heard of from your academy team. Like, that did sound whack. Look, it worked, but that was an enormous gamble to take, of course.
And even when on the maps he was just standing in for, like, he didn't do terribly, but because he was being compared to Flamey, it was like better than Flamey. Fuck, like, you know what I mean? It was one of those things where he was sort of given the benefit of the doubt just because he was performing better than Flamey was, and then eventually when he first came into the team like full time, there was when you watch those games. If you had predicted Bit is going to be a top 3 player in the world this year, top 5 player in the world this year, it would have been like, okay, yeah, cool, yeah, for sure, man, like, for sure, right?
No, I'm with you, dude.
Definitely not. But
people
then all of a sudden,
erased history, you know, like they talk like the second he came in the lineup, he was doing this. It took him months to charge up.
A long time. Yeah. And it's funny. There was like the interview he did, or there was something I've heard the quote many times where he was like, Simple just told me to aim higher. And then it was like that, and now he's like one of the best, one of the best headshot percentage players in the world. Like, apparently there was some moment.
Dude, that low-key actually triggers me, though, because you remember a couple of years ago, that famous thing where that guy on Reddit was like, Astralis is aiming slightly lower than any other team. Maybe they know something secret about, like, headshot, but, like, shut up! Like, why do we even tolerate, like, waste of time discussions like that?
And then Simple's whole secret is, dude, just aim at the head.
Yes.
By the way, like, revolutionary fucking...
That's almost as good. By the way, what makes that quote great is because as a player, he actually does seem to obviously believe, as you're saying, that like changed something about his game. Whereas the joke there is, like, realistically, that advice is nothing. Like, you get out of that whatever you put in. Like, maybe it's something else that he meant on mistranslate. Because all I'll say
I don't even know how real it is. Like,
it doesn't sound real, does it?
I've just heard it quoted to me so many times by people that I'm just like, oh, dude, maybe this is real. Maybe this happened. I don't fucking
That's
know.
like there's a story in League of Legends, right? There's a really good Korean jungle player who's called Klid, who played recently for Gen G. And he used to play for T1, right? He used to play for one of the best teams in the world, right? And this guy was an amazing Lee Sin player, which is the champion of people don't know in League of Legends, which is the one that, like, can fly in when it, like, lands a bobble thing on you. It goes in and then it can do the kick on you because it's a karate champion. And basically, it's a mega playmaking champion. And there's a story that this guy supposedly was mega low ranked in Korea and was like a nobody. He wasn't even a competitive player. And he just read a guide to Lee Sin online. It was like, when you land the Q, go in. And he was like, oh my God. And they just became like one of the best players in the world. Like, again, that's one of those stories where it's like, this is like some dog shit, like Marvel 1940s comic origin here. Like, what is this? Like, oh, I got bit by a spider. Like, no, you didn't. This is some garbage. You just had to do some bad writing to get into the story. So whatever, we're into the story on that one.
Although apparently is real. I just found a clip.
I could believe it.
Simple said in that at an event they called a tactical timeout, and he told Bit to aim higher, and then they ended up winning the game. And now Bit's like, I've just always aimed higher since. And now,
the joke is, he probably meant, like, metaphorically. He was like, Bit, you are, like, you're a great player. You could be an excellent guy like me. Elevate your game. But then the mistranslation was like, he told me to aim higher. It's like, oh, I'm shooting him in the neck. My bad. That's the head. The head. Oh, fucking hell. You've done me there. Bloody hell.
He
also, I love the way Simple... By the way, that essentially also implies Simple is sort of... Because let's be real, no one is truly reformed. You just become a little bit less of an arsehole. You figure out where you pick your spots, right? Well, you know those stories from back in the day where Simple was just doing stupid shit, like telling veteran players, like, that is not how you hold this spot. Then he would take their spot, do an ace or something, and then go, that is how you hold that spot. And then the guy's just looking at him like, what are you talking about? Like, but that's like the same shit. Then he's giving people advice. Aim higher, like you are missing. Like, we're not all fucking aimbots like you are. Like, I am trying to aim at his head. What are you talking about?
Turns out Bit was an aimbot, actually. Like, and that was all he needed to become one. Yeah.
Exactly. At this point in time, it's actually a more plausible story that Bit is just some sort of an advanced Russian cyborg that Blade, like, programmed and made Ex Machina style. That's actually more plausible than he's just some nobody player that was on their academy squad and is now, like, the 4th best player in the world. Like, that actually is a more plausible story. Like, I could make a great movie out of that. Want to see more cool, funny, interesting clips based on topics from my content? Well, subscribe to this channel then, or, be a pleb and don't.